Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It's a wonderful Friday night, 8 p.m. On the East Coast. Good to see you out there. Dad Man Walking 55 right here with you tonight again on another Football Friday night. Barring an unseen last minute miracle, this will be the last Friday night football of any type that we've had since last August when we kicked the channel off. We started with SEC shows, then we moved into the NFL shows, and then greatly thanks to the prodding of a great Canadian to the north, Rambling Canuck, and somebody that's passionate about football as much as me, that's actually an XFL season ticket holder. We came up with another way to extend the football season even further for us diehard dorks that love everything football. And let me bring in the great co-host of this XFL show, the expert himself, the man that has all kinds of stats, knowledge, news, and great graphics. It's the great Woopah Troopah.
Hello.
Howdy, Woopah.
How's it going?
It's going fine, sir. Going fine. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk some football.
All right. We want to bring it tonight. It's our last Friday night of the XFL, so we're going to bring it full force tonight. Not hold anything back. We'll be opinionated. You might see a dad man rant. You might see a Whooper rant. Who knows what's going to happen this week? So, it's our last show strictly for this. As a little preview that everybody's, before I forget, is that we will review in the championship game that is currently scheduled for tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on ABC. We will review that schedule on Monday's Sports Weekly with Dad Man, and Woopah will appear with me on Monday night also, and we will spend some time on the reviewing the championship game, as well as hitting some of the news stories of the week. So, all right, Woopah, how's everything else going with you? I know you got some fantasy football going and other type of things. What's up with you that's not XFL right now in the football world?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, fantasy football. I was just looking at fantasy football. I realized I might have a tough matchup during the playoffs, but we'll see. At first I have to make the playoffs. I'm thinking way too far ahead, but
Yeah.
That's what I do. And then, I've just been working. I'm happy to finally have a day off coming up, some weekends. Because in the past, even my weekends have been me working. So,
Yeah, we've today was a day off. I kind of had to. It was like I was in a situation where it's like, okay, fine, I'll take off. I'm good with it. It's like don't have to twist my arm very much. So, but yeah, it's because we were planning for a trip, getting some stuff done. It was a great productive day with stuff we had to get done out there. So, well, with that, let's go ahead and greet the people in our chat, because obviously you can see the missus is out there saying, hey to you, Woopah Troopah. And hello. And hello to the stunning and brave Megatron. Hey. Yes, exactly. Good to see you here, which reminds me of something I need to write down. Oh my gosh, this day got so crazy and so busy. I tell you what, Woopah, if I did not have a calendar and if I was not writing stuff down, I would be way behind on things. Because it's like, let's see. Okay. Oh, shoot, I didn't set a date on one. So, hey, all right. That reminds me. I'll get a date on that one, Megatron. So I got so many different things going. It's like, oh my gosh, if I didn't write stuff down, I'd forget it. But hey, one thing I do not forget is these Friday nights with you, Woopah, with XFL football. And it's been a blast so far. The season, 10 weeks and a week of playoffs and a bye week has flown. 12 weeks have flown by in no time. No time at all.
Pretty quick.
Exactly. So let's, before we talk about the game itself and look to the other items that you've had that we want to talk about, what are some of the things that stand out to you? Let's kind of take a few minutes and look back at the season. What things stood out to you? What kind of some of the storylines that you see from what you've seen?
I mean, I think some of the biggest storylines you obviously had AJ McCarron hasn't really started a game in a long time. His first time playing in an actual game since I think. Here, let me look up.
And we're talking about game, not practice and not preseason games, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he threw one pass in 2020.
Wow.
So it's been a
That's
long
3 years
time.
ago. Jeez.
Yeah. So
And
pretty much no. Well, and it was a 20-yard completion. So there you go.
well, see, folks, what the thing is playing uh playing sports like that. That's a long time, and you get rusty when you're not playing all the time, and you're sitting out and you get rusty. Your skills deteriorate because there's nothing like actual playing in real games. The and that's really something that he could sit out 3 years, come back, and still be quite productive as he was this year. And I know Whoop is going to talk about his numbers a little bit later. But yeah, that's a very interesting point. Any others? Any other headlines that step out at you?
Trying to think.
No. There's one that stood out to me. While you think
Yeah.
is watching the daggum DC defenders this year transition from such a run heavy, almost like an old school Alabama run first, heavy run offense to at the end of the year they were throwing well more than they were running. Jordan Ta'amu developed as a quarterback, was really very effective. And let me say hello to you, Darius Munchausen. Great to see you here. Hey, and we got the great Woopah Troopah here. Absolutely. And we're talking XFL football tonight. Hey, love that. Oh, shoot. Yeah, the banner. I did play the banner tonight, Woopah.
Hey.
Hey, follow us. We're on Twitch also, so follow us over there. Like and smash that like button here on the YouTube channel and subscribe if you haven't already. We got victimized by YouTube again. Lost 3 more subs during a live stream twice. I was like, shake your head. But it's all good because you know what's important? Having great friends like Woopah on to talk sports and other things, the people that hang out with us and the people that are here in the chat. Y'all make all this fun, and y'all are what this is about. So back to my point about DC was how you don't see teams undergo that kind of a change once the season starts. I mean, we were talking about such a heavy run team. When you look at their early games, they did throw the ball some, but they were not really that. Let's see. Let me go back to week 1. DC beat Seattle 22-18. And statistically, Jordan Ta'amu was 8 of 19 for 86 yards. Okay. So you look at their team.
Below 50% completion.
50%. Yep. Derek King was 1 of 2 for 7 yards. So basically in that game, they were 9 of 21 for 93 yards. Okay. And they didn't run the ball well either that game. But as you go from game to game, you see how they were, and we've talked about this in our other shows too, Woopah, is how they were. So then they played Vegas, and that was another one where when we look at the box score, 11 of 8, 12 of 25, 109 yards,
Mm-hmm.
No turnovers, but the team ran for 229 yards. Ta'amu ran for 65 as a quarterback. Derek King had 33 as a running back. So you start to see a trend in the team as the season started, and below 50% generally was the completion rate, which we've talked about that as the types of marks you want to see from your starting quarterback. Then they go the next week when they play St. Louis. Sorry, Woopah. There was yardage wise was a little bit better. He was 11 of 20 for 196 yards. Derek King was 3 of 3 for 14 yards. So passing wise, they were 14 of 23. Still not great numbers. They did throw for 200 yards, but they ran the ball 39 times. So they were
Mhm.
almost 2-1 in terms of rushing attempts to passing attempts. So that's when you look at trends. But then as they developed, as the season went, you saw a very noticeable trend in this particular team. And like I said, the point is you don't see teams change this to this extent once the season is going. A running team usually stays a running team. A passing team usually stays a passing team. Barring injuries or some other dreaded event. Because like the week 10 game, I know, yeah, week 9 game. Sorry, week 9 game. They DC 29 pass attempts, 264 yards. Tam was 14 of 20, 188 yards. Even Derek King was 6 of 9 for 76. They only ran for 50 yards on 20 attempts. So you can see how this team transitioned. And, as we saw at Woopah, Tam was throwing some bullets in there. He was making some nice passes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really illustrative because you'd seen him play before, right? Have you ever seen
Yeah,
him throw that
I've
well?
seen him play 2020. He was a Battle Hawk. I got to see him there.
But did he ever show this kind of potential when he was on the Battlehawks roster?
Yeah, he was a pretty good quarterback. He wasn't as polished, I think, because at the time I think he had just come out of college pretty much, but he had some poise in the pocket. He obviously could move around, but one of his biggest strengths was uh, he was kind of a bigger guy.
Mm-hmm.
He had a couple plays where he could take a hit and stay upright. So
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an advantage definitely to have that. So, but yeah, I just didn't expect him. I'd never seen him play, and actually seeing the stats the way the season started did surprise me that he had that kind of ability. With watching some of the throws he made down the run, but that's one thing that stood out to me. So, do you have another?
I don't know. It's hard to think of one.
Well, there's one other thing that I could think of as we look back: the fake punts. This league had so many fake punts, and the punters were better quarterbacks than some of the quarterbacks on the rosters.
That's true.
I mean,
I think there were 5 fake punts, I want to say.
at least, and a couple, at least one went for a touchdown, I think. So
2 of them went for touchdowns.
Yeah. So as we see, some of the daggum punters might be better quarterbacks than they are punters. Bring back the old Danny White days. Do you know who Danny White was, Woopah?
I do not.
Danny White was the backup quarterback behind Roger Staubach in the late 70s, early 80s. So when Roger retired, while Roger was starting quarterback, Danny White was the punter and the backup quarterback. See, this is the model I love. I think your punter and your kicker should be doing more than just punting or kicking. I think you have one roster spot for your kicker. I think a kicker should be the punter also, or maybe like Danny White was the punter, but he was the backup quarterback. Make some use of yourself for a roster spot. But anyway, I digress with that. But yeah, so when Roger Staubach retired, Danny White took over as the quarterback. Had success, but not nearly to the level that Roger the Dodger did. So,
Yeah, just not quite.
Not quite at all. But hey, still fond memories. But see, I like it's like the utility infielder in baseball. If he's not your starter, it's nice that he can be plugged around, moved around different places, and even occasionally thrown in the outfield. That's what I like to see. And kind of that's way with your punter or your place kicker. Maybe not as much your place kicker because they're going for offensive points, so you kind of protect them a little bit. But the punters, just do something else. Do something else. Make use of yourself. Carry the clipboard. Help the quarterback room. All that other stuff. So at least that's what I say. So. All righty. And our friend Stunning got more Lego parts for the X Mansion arrived today. 5 more orders. He's going to have a very big Lego stream one day. I just know it. So, all right. Well, Woopah, shall we get into the preview of this week's championship game?
Sure, let's get into it.
All righty, folks. Hey, right, we'll bring it up. And hey, all right. Remember, we're on Twitch and YouTube right now. So, hey.
Yeah.
All right, Woopah, you take us away. You started off. And on all these, this is a slide that the Mrs. Dadman Walking made. And then everything else will be the great work of Woopah Troopah here. First class graphics and all.
Yeah. So the first thing that we have is, we've been talking about some awards. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we gave predictions, and last week we kind of said what we thought. Yeah, and said who won the awards, and this week they've released the all XFL team, like they have the all pro team and all that NBA. They have the all NBA team. They've got the all XFL team, and so we'll get to that first. That's offense and special teams. Here we have Jordan Teamu. Not really a surprise considering he won Offensive Player of the Year. But then we've got Abram Smith, also not a surprise. He had like 300 rushing yards more than second place. Also Ja'Cour Pearson and Hakeem Butler. Those guys were 1 and 2 in pretty much every receiving category. Then you have what I wasn't sure on, Cody Latimer. He does make it as a tight end. He was If he counts as a tight end, he's definitely the best tight end. It was very confusing because some places had him listed as a wide receiver, and he was a wide receiver in
Orlando. It's like it looks like they either squeezed it in to get an Orlando player on, or the league just didn't use tight ends very well.
The league, other than him, so he was like third in the league in pass and receiving yards. He was pretty good, which again is why I don't think he was really used as a tight end, which is why I don't understand why they put him here. I agree. If he wasn't there, he probably would have gotten in still as a wide receiver because he was pretty good. But what am I thinking of? Oh, the only other guy who really made noise was Sal Cannella. He did pretty good. But other than that, I mean, yeah, there was not many tight ends at all.
And
Lucky
even
Jackson.
Sal Cannella, physically, when I saw him, didn't really look like much. Did not look like your prototypical tight end either. He almost looked like a wide receiver. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, to say so. I predicted Sal Cannella getting the tight end spot and Cody Latimer getting the third wide receiver spot. But instead, there's, I guess, a tie for third, and you had Lucky Jackson, who was pretty good, and then Deontay Burnett, which is kind of surprised. I don't know. I don't know about that one, but whatever. We got the offensive line. I don't know much about offensive line. I guessed one right, so hey, there you go. But I'll be honest, seeing 3 Battlehawks here was a little bit surprising because someone who watched the Battlehawks all year round, it felt like there was a lot of sacks given up, and so I was like, I don't think the line was that good, but whatever.
See, Burnett in that playoff loss to the Renegades, 4 catches, 57 yards, along with 38. I mean it's okay. I mean,
yeah.
I was trying to go back and look to see if there was anything big with his numbers, but see, even week 10, where they actually scored 25 points and crushed the same team that beat them the next week. They let's see where I gotta get the box score. Yeah, he actually he didn't even play that week. It doesn't look like. Looks like they sat him out. So, wow, that's I'm trying to find it. I had to go back another week to see. I was just trying to see if there was possibly a big game he had, because Lucky Jackson is one that I've seen have big games. So for DC, that's kind of why I'm surprised. See him beat him out.
DC seems to have a lot of speedy guys. I guess they're kind of the opposite of the Battlehawks. The Battlehawks had pretty much exclusively big body receivers, guys that are made to win the jump balls, while DC had a lot of speedsters. They have pretty high yards per catch. I think
week 9. I'm sorry, I saw this week 9. Deontay Burnett 1 catch, 5 yards.
That's not great.
Well, and I'm going to look at Lucky Jackson that week because you predicted Lucky Jackson that week. Well, let's just look in week 8 and see what Lucky Jackson did with this. So, hey Wade, good to see you. Good to see you, Wade.
Hello.
Hey, welcome. Let's see. Oh shoot, picked the wrong. Okay, Lucky Jackson. I get my teams confused. He only had 2, but he had 20 yards. So 14 longest. But I will tell you, I do know that Lucky Jackson had some big games. Let's see. Let me go. I think week 10. Let's see. Look at week 10. DC, San Antonio. They with that week. Let's see. Lucky Jackson had 3 catches, but they were for 84 yards, almost 30 yards of reception, folks. He showed big play explosiveness.
Yeah, that was kind of the story of Lucky Jackson all season. You'd only see a few catches, but they'd go pretty far.
Yeah, because Deontay Burnett, he may have only had a few catches, but they were they didn't go far. They didn't do much,
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm just going to look at week 9 real quick, and then we'll move on from this. But this is interesting. 2 of 20. I'd say I looked at the same game twice for Lucky Jackson. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's. But you can see, like you said, he had the explosiveness. You could tell it in the numbers, and sometimes that's what makes you great receivers. Why they win the awards is, it's not necessarily how many catches. It's what do they do with the ball. How big is it? How big do they do? There's one game I wanted to find with him that I saw. Let's see. Let's see, DC. Yeah, and that course that game where they lost to Orlando. It's like yeah, 4 catches, 60 yards. So 2 touchdowns. So we see in 4 different games right there, his numbers were, even though the number of catches may not have been big, touchdowns and yards per catch. So good point. I agree with you. I agree with you. Lucky Jackson should have been selected for that team, and that was a good pick that you had with that. So that means you got 3 other wide receivers if you move Cody Latimer back to wide receiver.
Yeah, I'll take it. I did pretty good predicting.
Yeah.
And special teams, we had, Darius Shepard. He won return specialist of the year, so he made it. Not surprising. John Parker Roma was definitely the best kicker, so he made it. And Daniel Whalen, I think I was a little bit surprised, but he was really good. I remember a lot of games. I think the game we played in DC, he kept hitting us right inside the 10 pretty much. He was really good. So props to him.
In the game against Orlando, week 7, he had 3 punts for 144 yards, longest of 66. So in spot, that's about 48 yards a punt. Yeah, so
pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't remember him with the fake punts like the Orlando punter and some of the other teams' punters. But hey,
oh yeah. But no, he didn't quite have the fake punts, but he was a really good punter.
But that team was so powerful offensively, they didn't need to resort to fake punts.
Yeah, that's true.
They ended up scoring 298 points on the season.
Yeah, there's a reason they had the record they did.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I like your team by team breakout there to the right too, Woopah. That's interesting.
Yeah. I forgot to put one next to the Guardians. They got one there. But,
yeah.
Oh well.
That's okay.
But yeah, the big thing here is the thing that I was, I know I've talked about a bit, but I just don't understand why Jordan Ta'amu got the quarterback I think it's just a little ridiculous. I mean, he won Offensive Player of the Year, so you knew he was going to get it here. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just don't see why. You look at his stats. He, he had a 6. Comparing it to my guy AJ McCarron, he
Mm-hmm.
had AJ McCarron had 68 completion percentage. Te'amu had 61. Talking about Jordan Te'amu had 14 touchdown passes to McCarron's 24, which led the league. He had 300 less passing yards than McCarron, which McCarron also missed a game too. So this is all Jordan Ta'amu's 10 games versus McCarron's 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
And turnovers wise, McCarron had 10 turnovers. Well, Jordan Ta'amu had 8. So it's not like, he had a little less, but it's not like he had a ton less. And the only thing I can think of is rushing yards wise, which still AJ McCarron had 100 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. I think Te'amu had a little under 300 rushing yards. I don't see how, not even 200 rushing yards gets you the better quarterback award over all those stats that I just listed.
Mm-hmm.
It seems very silly. And I guess the only thing I can think of otherwise is, well, DC was a better team, but yeah, they're 9-1 versus 7-3. We're not talking about the difference between them and the Vipers or something like that. This is still a pretty good team that did really well. So it's just silly. I don't think there's any good logic for why he would win the award. Props to him. He did good, but silly vote by them, especially considering look at De'Aaron King. Like, Te'amu was clearly the starter, but they mixed in De'Aaron King a lot, and sometimes they put him in for like regular drives. It's like, I don't
they
think you
did.
can say, hey, he's the most, he's the best quarterback, he's the best offensive player when he's getting replaced sometimes. They're taking him off the field.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't take your best guys off the field.
No, you don't. You really
Someone's
don't.
hurt, or so I guess sometimes with receivers and running backs, guys are winded. You got to say, hey, take a break, but then you got to get them back out there.
Yeah, it's yeah, they
I think
that was frustrating, to see, but it's like in all types of sports that it's like the teams that are winning get the players on the and the coaches on the winning teams get the advantage just because their team wins. Which is not fair. It's not supposed to be a team award. It's supposed to be an individual best player award.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. It's a little silly.
Yeah, it's all crazy. So it happened. Like I said, it's in all the sports that are there. It did. It sucks. It happens in college. It happens in NFL. I talked about that a while back on the NFL. The other day when I was talking about the NFL draft and things like that. That let me say hi to Lisa real quick before I start on that long-winded rant. Hi, Lisa. Welcome. And we got 10 wonderful people here hanging out with us on a Friday night. Thank y'all all so much. And read the banner below, follow on Twitch, and smash that like button and subscribe on the YouTube side. But like I said, with the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars, if you saw what that franchise had been for the last 20 years, and especially the last 3 years, and especially the year before with Urban Meyer experiment coming to town, the job Doug Peterson did should have been unquestionably NFL Coach of the Year, period. I don't care who, whatever, all this other stuff. Yes, I will say that the Giants coach did turn around a train wreck in New York, but you know what? New York is not what Jacksonville has been. So bottom, back-to-back first overall draft picks. Last year was a drama here with this team, and it was pathetic, and it was all about drama, not football. And the team's been so bad for years. And then that insult injury, Woopah, the San Francisco head coach got more votes or points towards the vote than the Jaguar coach. So the Jaguar coach ended up third in the whole thing. You know, it's just crazy. So I feel you there, man. I feel you there.
Yeah, it's a little silly to say the least.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand it. I won't pretend to understand it, but whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. Move on. Enjoy your season and keep going. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
But let's get into the all XFL defense here.
okay, let's do it.
So we've got my Alexa went off. But
Yeah.
we've got a few guys here. The first thing is defensive line, which is just kind of crazy. I don't know. There was a bunch of ties, I guess, because man, look at this. There's
What the heck?
7 defensive linemen getting on there. And I'll tell you something. I mean, I won't claim to be perfect. I don't know a lot of these. I don't know everything, even though, I like to say that I do. I don't know everything. But, man, I don't know most of these guys. You see Drew Beasley, Delonte Scott, Davin Bellamy. Yeah, I knew them. All these other guys, I have no clue who they are.
No, I know PETA because I've heard of PETA in that name. And hey, and
hello to. But I was looking at just the defensive lineman in this case.
Mm-hmm. Let me say a quick hello to Alaska Jeff. Jeff, good to see you tonight. Yeah, thank you lurking while you work. All you lurkers out there, thank y'all. Appreciate you saying hi and checking in. But work away and hopefully we can entertain you, give you something nice to listen to last night, and go back and check the stream with Jeff last night. It was awesome, and I tweeted out a couple of clips with my experiment of the pink unicorn versus a gas station. So I don't know if you had a chance to watch that one, Woopah, but I died gloriously. I died gloriously, and Jeff was so good on the commentary. But yeah. All right. Thank you guys for everybody for being here for lurking and stuff. Yep. But yeah, I don't know how you can do any type of MVP, all whatever team like this, because normally you just follow the number of normal positions, which is 11 players. You might have 5 defensive linemen, but then it's all set by only 2 linebackers. You know what I mean? They allocate it between the 11 positions. But yeah, I guess they didn't do that here. That is
I don't know. I get if you have like a tie, like a one person, it's like, hey, that's fine. But 7 defensive linemen, that's just silly. At that point, it's not really an award.
No, I know.
I'm frustrating too because Battlehawks here, they only have one guy, and I definitely don't think he's the best guy in our defense. I don't know why he was here. Honestly, Liverett Hill, no offense to him, he did okay, but we've got so many more better players. And the thing is, first of all, defensive line. Battlehawks had a pretty good defensive lineman, LaCale London, defensive tackle. He was pretty good at just about everything. So I refuse to believe he's the 8th best defensive lineman in the league. When league with 8 teams, I definitely think he's better than some of these guys. Then the other part of it is just the way they have it. A lot of these guys are edge rushers. So you're looking at defensive line, that's 7. But these linebackers, out of the 3 linebackers, only one of them is an inside guy. You've got Peter Tamapanu, who won Defensive Player of the Year. He was more of an edge rusher, and same with Trent Harris. So it's like, I don't know at that point, why don't you go 4 linebackers and 3 defensive linemen? Because you had a lot of linebackers lining up on the edge. Battlehawks guy who was also really good at this, Travis Feeney. I don't know if he necessarily deserved to be on here because these other guys are also really good, but I definitely think he's a better player than most, all the defensive linemen who only made it on because of a tie. So it's just silly to me.
But you know what? But I will tell you what's not silly. Okay, you know what's not silly?
What?
folks, I want y'all to see how good Woopah Troopah is. That column is who you predicted, right? And
Yeah.
if I'm reading that, you got, assuming 11, not what they did, you got 9 of the 11 right. Correct?
Yep.
Wow. Folks, good job, Woopah. Be proud
Thank
of
you.
that, man. Be very proud of that. And plus, also, Woopah beat the crap out of me his week on my show in the SEC football picks, too. So, hey, Woopah's a great prognosticator out there, folks. So,
Thank you.
but yeah, that is very impressive. And I tell you what, this is harder than picking winners and losers because you really have had to scout out, watch the games, and really, know these players a lot more than a casual fan to be able to be that accurate. Because I will just say I'm impressed with what you did here on the. Forget, like I said, forget that they added. Who could have anticipated that? But to pick, you got all 3 linebackers. You got 3 of the 4 defensive linemen, and you got 3 of the 4 defensive backs. Yeah, spot on. Good job.
Yes.
Good job, Woopah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But you know what I do find kind of odd and interesting with this is look at the team with the most on defense was San Antonio. Now, San Antonio, I guess it's probably good because they gave up the third fewest points. Only the Seattle Dragons have given up 177 and Houston 182 gave up fewer points, but San Antonio had only given up 183 points. And I'm just like looking. So Houston's got 3 defenders on the team, and then Seattle only has 1. But I mean, I did not expect to see San Antonio, quite frankly, with the most defenders named to this team, though. And honestly, if you didn't throw in the extras over to the left, the extra defensive linemen, they might have had it more. They might have had even a bigger advantage.
Yeah, I will say San Antonio's had a pretty good defense. Jordan Williams led the league in tackles. Delonte Scott was one of the few defensive linemen I think actually deserved it. And Luke Barku, I didn't pick him to do it, but he certainly was a pretty good defensive back. I don't think it's crazy to put him on the list. I think he makes sense. It certainly makes more sense than Lavert Hill, in my opinion. But
yeah, these teams don't, like we said, don't make sense some of the time. Sometimes it does become a popularity contest, and things like that. Because I'm looking at CDC's given up 240 points. That's second worst to only, third worst. Vegas and Orlando gave up more points. But DC still had 2 on there. Vegas had 2 on there. Yeah. While teams that were stingy like the Renegades only, I guess, had 1 over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have thought more of them might have been
named.
named.
I figured they would have had I think I picked one of their defensive backs to make it because they had 2 really good guys, Joel Powell and Will Hill. A lot of people know Will Hill. But Will Hill, what's the word? Both of them were pretty good. And again, I don't say that to shade Luke Barku because he did do a very good job, but it is surprising to me. Yeah, Renegades had a good defense all year. I only get 1 defensive lineman I've never heard of instead of their secondary, which was probably one of the best parts of it. It's weird. And they could have had a linebacker. I think he doesn't make it. Donald Payne doesn't make it because of he sat out 2 games because he was hurt. But he was, until he got hurt, he was kind of up there close with Jordan Williams for tackles. And that's another reason that I'm just looking at, man, why did they choose to have for sure 4 defensive linemen and not, make it like maybe 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and a flex guy between them? Because there's so many in this league that did well, and I think they definitely deserved it over these defensive linemen that got it.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, Woopah. It's a beauty contest. But what I do think is awesome, and I will say it again, is the accuracy that you had on this side of the ball. That's impressive. 9 of 11. So,
Thank you.
And see, Seattle only give up 177 points a game. They only have one name to the team. It's amazing that they put anybody from Orlando on it, considering they gave up a league record 310 points in 10 games. That's 31 points a game.
Yeah, it doesn't make. I mean, yeah, especially because this was a typo. They did have an offensive guy on the team in the last one, so they actually have 2 total. But sometimes I wonder, hey, maybe they put some of these guys on just to so everyone has one player. But yeah, Kavion Patton, it could just be it could just be that I don't know what I'm talking about, but no, I mean, I just don't know anything about that guy.
Nope.
Maybe he's actually good, but I don't know if he is.
Well, if he's good, he got lost on a very bad defense. So,
yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, well, that's it. That's it for the XFL team. That's, like I said, it's impressive. That's impressive what you did. I tell you what, the offense, I'm amazed you even got any of the offensive linemen right. Because people watch.
I only got one. It was still not very good.
But people watch the defensive linemen because they're the ones sacking quarterbacks, busting through the offense. Nobody really watches the offensive lineman that close. So
yeah, it's hard to do. And the thing here is too, in the NFL, you've got a lot of stats. If you really want to dive into them, you can dive into offensive line stats. If you want to look at the XFL offensive line stats, there's really nothing besides like a whole unit. I could tell you that X offensive line is better than Y offensive line, but I couldn't tell you anything about, is it because their tackle's really good, or is it because this team's center is the best? I have no idea. So there's throwing darts at a board, and I got one of 5, so didn't do a great job still, but
it's okay. 20% when you're throwing darts might not be bad.
Yeah. All right. So we can see here, DC got the most with 7, St. Louis with 6. I think they should have been swapped at the very least, but whatever. We had San Antonio and Houston both be tied with 5. San Antonio really carried by that defense. They actually had no offensive players. The only one that was they got their kicker and 4 defensive players, which is fair. They had a lot of good defensive players.
Well, and their kicker was the best kicker in the league, which is sad. I mean, he hit drilled bombs, John Parker Romo, from well over 50. But sadly, for those that might not know it, he missed 2 kicks all year. The very first kick of the year, the very last kick of the year, which had he made would have put them in the playoffs instead of Arlington Renegades, who are now going to be in the championship game. That's how close football is. That's why some of us love football so much, because little things turn out not to be so little. One kick could have changed his whole playoff scenario. So, but yeah, he definitely earned being on getting all XFL recognition, though. But.
No, I totally agree. And the Houston, I think at least their defensive, Trent Harris and Ajene Harris, were both excellent. They don't tell you who the number 1 vote getter is for all these. If it's defensive back, they just lump all 3 of them, in this case, all 5 of them together. But my vote would have been Ajene Harris to be number 1. But and you've got here, Seattle had 3 guys, and I'll tell you, I don't know who their defensive lineman is, but Ja'Cour Pearson, and he was definitely deserving of the role. Then you've got the Guardians have this defensive lineman I don't know about, and Cody Latimer, who did deserve it definitely for tight end. One of the best receivers, period, in the league, but definitely better tight end. And then Renegades kind of just got a guy, I guess, because they had to have someone. I don't know.
Oh man, yeah, it's one of those. It sounds like it's one of those. Everybody has to have a team, because I don't know if they still do it that way, but like growing up, Major League Baseball had that where everybody had to. Every team had to have one player on the All-Star team. The fans voted, but still one player had to be on each. From each team had to be there, even if it was a horrible, horrible team.
Mm-hmm. No, I do think they do that a lot. I think it's maybe less egregious in a league with 8 teams, but it still does make you wonder, like, oh, what's this guy doing here? But
Yeah.
there's some questionable decisions here. But
When we take a wide receiver and stick him in as a tight end, just to have a reason for him to be on, it's. But you know what? I think it's also a problem with the league. Is like they don't really haven't developed, or either because of the USFL all going at the same time, or somewhat else that they're not as developed position wide like the other leagues. That they're missing talent in some of those spots. And that's why they end up with having to take a wide receiver, stick them in at a tight end.
mm-hmm.
That type of thing. And let's say hello to Jess. Hello, Jess. Welcome.
Hello.
Good to see you. So, all right. Well, we got anything else on these XFL teams? Or
nope, this is all that I have for awards.
all righty. So
we get to that. What we kind of continue here,
Yep.
the XFL to NFL.
Yep.
This is everything that happened since our last stream.
All right. Well, I one name that jumps out at me right there is Jalen McClendon.
Yeah, he just got signed, none of this is signed. This is all invited to camp.
Mm-hmm.
But he just got invited to camp today by the Bills, and he was a guy I thought would return because he did play well, but he just had such a small sample size. But another guy that they invited, Quinn Dormady, who was a kind of guy I had pegged similarly of, did pretty good, but had a small sample size, and also Dormady had some bad games. But yeah, they both got invited to the Bills practice, and I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that they don't sign both of them, but we could be looking at a guy who ends up as one of the Bills' backup quarterbacks.
Well, if he plays anything like he did here near the end, that could be happen. A couple things that noticed, just so that people understand, we only see 6 of the 8 teams in the league here for the invites to camp, because they have not invited players yet that are still competing, which is DC and Arlington. So that's why you only see 6 teams. So there will be more down the road.
They're still under contract, so they don't get.
Yeah, it's Steven Montez. He wasn't even the starting quarterback for Seattle.
No, I think he threw either 1 or 2 passes all year. I don't think he's a particularly big name. Maybe he is, but yeah, he got signed by San Francisco. I'll be honest. San Francisco already has Brock Purdy. They've got Trey Lance, and they just signed Sam Darnold this year. 3 quarterbacks. I find it hard to believe that Steven Montez is going to is going to stick.
Well, it's called camp arms. A lot of times, they just sign bodies to make throws in camp so that they can run everybody else on the positions and practice and do what they have to do to evaluate all the positions. But I mean, I would have thought maybe DiNucci, but I don't see his name there.
So some of the people, DiNucci got. Let me check, because he did get signed or go to camp somewhere, but he got announced pretty much on the first day. He got invited to the Broncos camp, but that was pretty much on the first day. So some guys have already got, were already from this list that, were from last time. I can look it up.
Yeah. Well, while you're looking it up, I want to say hello to another guest in Miss Martin Muses. Welcome. Good to see you again tonight. And with that, we have 12 people watching us. Thank you, folks, for spending your Friday evenings with us. Make sure you follow us on Twitch if you have a Twitch channel. And definitely smash that like button over here on the YouTube side and subscribe if you haven't. We appreciate all the support and thank you for the roses. Thank you so much. Hey, and Brian Hepburn snuck in on me. Hey, sorry, Brian.
Hey,
Every arm is welcome. Niners went through all their QBs last season. Yes, they did.
that's true. I'm just saying, I don't know if any team has ever carried 4 quarterbacks into the season. They've already got 3 under contract. So,
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, before we get into things, see what happened. See, that's what I told you about earlier with that punter. The punter in the '80s, like Danny White, was the backup quarterback and the punter. And then you had multiple players that could fit in these things. San Francisco went in the playoffs last year with 2 quarterbacks there in that game against the Eagles. Both got hurt in the game. So your backup, your third player is a running back, Christian McCaffrey, and they wouldn't let him throw the ball, so it was basically over. You've got to carry, especially if you're in the playoffs, you've got to carry another body, or at least have a competent somebody like the punters, like we talked about the punters in this league that could throw fake punts. Your punters should be your backup quarterback, or somebody, even a wide receiver, somebody that can throw the ball, that can run your normal offense to some degree. Because we saw the problem with only carrying 2 quarterbacks at any time, especially in the playoffs, and it killed San Francisco last year. Because they had the defense, they had a lot of other things, but that strategic decision backfired. Like you said, teams don't carry 4. The question is 3. Do we carry 3? But hey, my idea is, Gary, 2, have your backup punter as a quarterback. Not a running back, because a running back as a quarterback to me is like the position player pitching in baseball.
mm-hmm.
You got a guy that's just lobbing it just to save an arm. But yeah, but sorry for that turn. But hey, Brian, welcome in. Yeah, and like I also said, the theory too with the NFL signing these players, even if they're bad in these smaller leagues, they're camp arms, being that they're just there to throw the ball so the Tom Brady's and the starting quarterbacks don't have to throw as much when they're going through practices and training camps and stuff like that. But it allows the other position players, the running backs, the tight ends, the linemen, to get repetitions that they need while you rest your better starters, because you don't want your veteran quarterbacks throwing like crazy in training camp. You want them closer to the season gets, and that's when you get them ready for action. So camp arms. So yeah, and oh yeah, they play Philly, dude. Anytime you play Philly, they're it's like the FSU of the NFL to me. So yeah. And Jess coming in saying, I remember the Bears like 10 years ago going through a bunch of QB to the point of finding McCowan, who was teaching and coaching at high school by the time of training camp for public in late July. Well, that's true. Well, Woopah, we know about the story about the Rams in St. Louis, right? The Kurt Warner story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that may not know about Kurt Warner?
Yeah, so Kurt Warner was wanted to make the NFL, but has trouble doing it. So he went all around. He played in Arena Football League. He played in NFL Europe back when that was a thing. He couldn't quite get full time on an NFL roster. So eventually, I think after his last stint, I think that was in Europe, he went to, the famous story, he went to bagging groceries just because, well, that was all. He decided he was done with football and he's doing that. And then someone, I guess, from the NFL called him up and said, hey, do you want to show up to training camp? And that was the Rams. Showed up to training camp, did good enough that he ended up making the roster as Trent Green's backup for the Rams. Now, Trent Green got hurt in like the first preseason game or something.
Was that the one that he headbutted the wall?
I don't think so.
Or was that might have been another team. All I remember, Trent Green was scoring a touchdown and headbutting a wall and then having a neck injury. Sorry about that.
No, he was a St. Louis, and Trent Green grew up in St. Louis.
Yep.
I knew I liked him. That makes it sad that he didn't. I mean, he ended up having a decent career, but I wish he would have, And I mean, it worked out, but he got a decent starter, but this was a knee injury he had.
Okay.
And it was a preseason game and he was out. So Kurt Warner came through, got named the starter, and next thing you know, he is going crazy. He's playing great. Ends up winning MVP that year, leads the team to the Super Bowl. Up to this point, up until last year, is the only Rams Super Bowl. Which I wish it didn't. I wish it was still the only Super Bowl, because that was the only thing I enjoyed saying, being able to say hey, the LA Rams only Super Bowl was in St. Louis. So, but oh well. But he did really good.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up doing amazingly under that Greatest Show on Turf offense. He had some of the. We'll see. I think right now already have two. Kurt Warner's a Hall of Famer. I think Marshall Faulk's a Hall of Famer. Isaac Bruce, I don't know if he's got in, but he better get in. If he doesn't get in, it's ridiculous. And Torrey Holt has a chance. I don't know if he will, but in my opinion, that he should. But I'm a little biased there. But
yeah,
no,
I
it was
don't
just
blame
a great,
you. He
great
had his career
offense
in Jacksonville though, so.
Oh yeah, that was way late in the career there.
Yeah, did not do much of anything. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. So just to go over some of that, I pulled up the other thing. Ben DiNucci got signed with Denver. Hakeem Butler is in training camp with the Steelers. Darius Shepard went with the Lions. Another interesting thing, Harrison Frost. He was another backup. So now 3 Seattle Sea Dragons quarterbacks have been invited to camp. And the difference with Harrison Frost, first of all, he didn't ever throw a pass. But second of all, Harrison Frost was he was rookie eligible. There was talks that he might get drafted. He did not, but it was kind of a long shot. But he's young enough that that kind of makes sense. That's why I'm not sure. Steven Montez. Let me look that up too. I'm at it because I don't know.
Yeah, because
he's 26. He got he graduated in 2020. So I don't understand that one at all. Whatever. But
yeah,
so those are the guys there. You also had Trent Harris, who went to Denver. Luke Barku, so that and went to Cleveland, and John Parker Romo went to Detroit. So those are guys that are all in the All XFL team.
Okay.
John Trey Kirkland, he was a Houston receiver who he did the double forward pass, and he was doing pretty good, but then got hurt. Well, he signed with New York, which could be an interesting landing spot because New York has a big need for wide receivers right now. Jacques Patrick from the Brahmas, he was a pretty solid running back. He got a deal or got an invite with Denver, and then Charleston Rambo from the Guardians, he got one as well. Other than that, most of the other people that made it are either not that huge, except for some Battlehawks that I like. But the surprising one that we talked about then is Jack Cohn got invited to not 1 but 2 training camps, which is
that was crazy.
Do we watch the same guy play?
I just recognized Steve Montez's number. I looked up. He played football at Colorado, so I knew I'd seen that name somewhere before. But he's had a journeyman career in the NFL. So spent a year with Washington, 2 years with Detroit. So, but it was Detroit. He was off season and or only practice squad member. So yeah, you never know. So he's from El Paso and decided not to go to the University of Texas El Paso. Go figure. But yeah, this is a really neat breakdown that you got here with these players by team by invite. So It's very, very interesting because that's what these players are trying to do. They're trying to get on the field to get game tape so that to get a shot to get invited to training camp to hopefully catch on with an NFL team, at least as a practice squad member in many cases. So,
Mhm.
all
But
right.
yeah, sorry, I was.
Do you have anything that you predict, or have you looked for of who you think maybe for the matchup that we're seeing between DC and um, Arlington? How many players do you think might get invited to camp?
It's hard to say. I think that you're gonna look at. I think you're gonna get. So the Renegades have first. They have Saul Cannella. He was the tight end. You have Donald Payne, who was the guy who was pretty good. Joe Powell, and another guy is Willie Taylor. Now he didn't have the best stats, but Willie Taylor was another. He was one of the three players in the XFL who was draft eligible. Now Harrison Frost was kind of all potential, and I don't know if he's going to make it. If he doesn't, I'm sure he'll be back here in the XFL because he's got potential. It'd be nice to see what he's got. And another guy who was draft eligible, he never even saw a snap, so he was,
Mm-hmm.
don't care. Willie Taylor was a starter for the Roughnecks, the Renegades, and he wasn't the best, but a guy who's should be a senior in college, going up with all these guys. Sure, they're not NFL players, but they're grown men, and you earn a starting spot. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't get taken with a late round pick, but he
Yeah.
is. I think he's 100% going to get a shot, and I think he's going to make a team for DC. I think you're going to see a lot of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Whalen, the punter, he's going to make it. The Michael Joseph did really well, 2 pick sixes. Abram Smith, he's absolutely. I know he's young, Baylor guy. He's going to get a chance. Lucky
Yeah.
Jackson, I bet's going to get a chance. I think you're going to see a ton out of them. But
So,
I was just laughing because I read Stunning and Brave's post wrong. I thought he said he's starting to drown a hot chick. He's drowning a hot chick. I'm like, what?
no, it's not. We're on Twitch too, but that's not a hot tub stream. So, by any means, oh my gosh, we got 13 wonderful people with us tonight. Thank y'all for hanging out again with us on a Friday night. Listening to us, we haven't even hit the previews, and we're going to do that very soon. But thank y'all for being here, hanging out. One thing that I do like to do for anybody, especially if you're new or not as familiar with our format, I try to do the sports shows. If you have comments or if you have questions about the game, whether it's how to play it or a rule or something specific with the leagues, how they, feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we'll try to address them the best we can. If we don't know, we don't know, and if we can, we'll try to look it up. But we want this to be more than just stats and figures. I want it to be more interactive and help you to get comfortable and not so afraid of the sports world. Know a little bit more about things. And sometimes somebody has thrown something off the wall out there, and I took, it actually had relevance to a real life situation. So that was what, so please feel free to share. Jess has also talked about a story with Josh McCowan being pulled out of high school, which, we talked about the Kurt Warner story. So please feel free. All those are relevant, especially players moving from a smaller league like this to the NFL. So, and Woopah, Stunning's warning is shh. So, that's okay. But one player for DC that I think could get an invite, and it's because that they started in Jacksonville a couple years ago. Did not hang on. They came close, I think, but that might also be a good sign. Well, not just Jordan Ta'amu. I think because he can throw, he'll get an invite. But Josh Hammond. Josh Hammond has put up good numbers in the league this year. I mean, not necessarily big yards per catch and touchdowns like Lucky Jackson, but in the playoff game against Seattle, he had 6 catches for almost 60 yards. He tends to get open. He finds those holes, and a lot of times in NFL, those are your dangerous receivers, the Cole Beasleys, the guys that find those little seams in the zone that don't necessarily get the big long pass plays down the field. I think he might have a chance to catch on, at least an invite, Because I know in Jacksonville he came close to making the roster as a rookie.
That's definitely possible. I wouldn't be surprised if he made it in.
So,
But
okay.
there's some guys. I don't need to talk about most of these people. I want to talk about, first of all, Battlehawks have the most people, so we're the best. Take that.
Yeah, there you go.
But you had some of the bigger guys, the guys I highlighted in green. That just means on my original thing, they're guys I predicted that I thought they would go to the NFL. You got Ja'Cory Pearson. He's invited to 3 camps. He was the XFL's leading receiver, so it's not surprising. But he's the first one to get invited to 3 camps.
Wow.
We already
Which
talked
one
about
would
the
you
2
take if you were?
quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you were a receiver, which one of the 3 would you take?
I think personally, I'd take Atlanta, and the reason I say that is because Atlanta's got one guy really right now.
Huh.
I guess they got 2, but he's Pitts is a tight end, so that's a little
Right.
different. But looking at the guys, I know that this is true, but let me go back just to, I guess, prove my point more. 2022 Falcons, their leading receivers, number 1 was Drake London. He, rookie who had 866 yards. Not bad. Second place was Olamide Zacchaeus. Now, if you haven't heard of him, there's probably a reason for that. This is his 4th year. He had 533 yards. He's going to be 26, and he's been okay. But that's not a guy who's going to keep you from a roster, really. And then after that was Kyle Pitts. He obviously struggled and then got hurt. He had 356. So no one else had over 300 receiving yards. Some of that is by design. So the Falcons are a very run-heavy team, and they're probably going to be a very run-heavy team again.
Why? Sorry, Woopah. I don't mean to cut you off because I'm about to lose it again. Why? You draft Pitts as high as they did because of his physical ability at Florida, the way he dominated defenses and was more than just your average tight end. Why would you do that to your offenses if you have talent like that?
Hey, I don't know. You're telling me, look, they're the team that had a rookie Tyler Algier have 1,000 rushing yards and then immediately drafted a running back in the first round. Doesn't make sense to me.
All right.
I don't know how you can look at that and say, yeah, we got to upgrade it. The only position that they really were set at.
Yeah, let's draft another. Yeah, that's crazy. I'm sorry. I just lost that because I watched Kyle Pitts for 3 years. He was amazing. He was on, and granted, it is different. I think he's finding out it's much harder at the NFL than in college, but to be so talented, gifted down the field and catch the ball and athletic, to then to be stuck in an offense where they don't want to throw the football, it's crazy. So sorry about that. I just couldn't hold back on that one. When you're saying those stats for Atlanta, but I did know that you even commented before on the selection of the running back in the first round. So
it ticks me. I mean, it ticks me off from a fantasy perspective because I have Tyler Algier, and it's like, oh man, he's going to be the one running back that's still okay for me. And now, no, I got no running back there. He's going to be the backup, or unless he gets traded, I would love to see him get traded. But it's frustrating because, that makes my fantasy team a lot weaker. But then just from a team standpoint, you're looking at Atlanta. They haven't been great for a while. It's been, ever since they made that Super Bowl, they've been going downhill, and you're looking at the team. They've got a good rookie running back, or I guess now second-year running back. They've got a good offensive line. They got a good tight end. What else do they have? Well, their QB's suspect. Their wide receivers, they drafted a first-rounder last year, but like I just said, they don't have anyone else behind them. Their defense is pretty bad. So it's like the only thing that you don't need is a tight end and a running back. I said their offensive line is good, but even an offensive line, that's 5 guys you could always use to upgrade a little bit there. But you go with running back. That's the only thing. One of the 2 positions you just don't need under any circumstances, and you take a guy there. Which not only that, not only is silly from a team standpoint, where it's like, okay, well, it's not going to help you, but it's also from a money standpoint. Contracts are standardized in the NFL. Bijan Robinson, he just signed his contract. Let me look it up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is this? Without the option, and with the option, I know it's pretty heavy, but without the option, it's 4 years, $22 million. He's making $4 million this year. He'll be making about $7 million at the end of it. If you want to look at top running backs in the league, he's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He's the 15th highest paid running back this year. And it's like, that's just average per year that we're talking about, which we said, okay, he's after bonuses, he's making 5.5 this year. Well, it's only going to go up. If you want to look at, it's going to get higher. I can't look that far ahead. I'm trying to work on the fly. But so he's already the 15th highest paid running back. You've got him for 4 years, maybe 5. It's only going to get higher because, again, these rookie contracts are scaled. So he makes, after bonuses, 5.5 this year. He's going to make – it looks like he's going to make 6.5 next year, then 7.5, then 8.5. Right now, if he was making 8.5 right now, he'd be top 10. That's just a crazy amount of money to give to a running back. Which, hey, it's worked out, right? We saw on a rookie contract, Zeke was worth it. He wasn't worth the second contract they gave him, but he was worth the rookie contract for sure.
But see, I thought they also took Zeke out of the game too much. I mean, for a running back pay that much, they try to treat him like a normal first and second down back, and always, and before even last year, it's like the last couple of years, never left him in on third down. Or some goal line situations. And my thing is, you would never have done that to Emmitt Smith.
No,
Emmitt Smith never came out. And Emmitt Smith might have been one of the last running backs, maybe Marshall Faulk.
Faulk was really good.
Where they did not come out on third down. They were your back. And that I miss because of all this specialization, and which goes to your point about you don't want to pay running back a lot of money if you're not going to use him every play, You don't use a quarterback to split time.
That's true. I think a lot of it comes down to, first of all, Dallas likes Tony Pollard a lot. Yeah. But it just comes down to these running backs get worn down. Mm-hmm. Some of it is specialization. Some of it is just, how the game's gone. But you're looking at, they had Zeke, trying to find his college stats, but I know he ran his sophomore year. He had 300 touches. Junior years, 300 touches. Mm-hmm. And you go to the NFL, he gets 300 for 3 of his first 4 years. Dang. And then, the only year he didn't, he was suspended for those few games, but they ran him into their ground, which is fine. But then, you got to know better than that than say, hey, wait a second. You keep using this guy like this, he's not going to he's going to eventually break down. And he did.
Up with you. Yep.
And you can't offer that big contract to some of these guys. And running backs have a quicker expiration date than they used to. Mm-hmm. But even at the end of the year, you look at Emmitt Smith, people tried to make him go a little farther than he should have. He had those years with Arizona that were pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, that might have been retired time, but hello to Jeremy, 5 Russia approved. Welcome in, my friend. Well, we've kicked this around. Are we ready? Ready to go? I know. See, this is the beauty of, and like I was saying to people, if you're new here, we have fun taking these side adventures on topics and stuff. We're very fluid with things, and we'll talk about things as they come up. And that's why if you have questions and things, let us know, and we'll see what we can do to address them. So it's more than just basic facts and numbers.
Yeah. So the other two things I'll touch on real quick is, well, I guess three things, but very quick. First of all, Devin Darrington, he was a guy who was very fast, and I wasn't sure if he would make it to the NFL, but here he is with the tryout for Washington. He's very good. He's got the speed. We'll see if he can put it together. He's kind of raw. And then you have, Peter Tamapenu, Defensive Player of the Year, getting a contract or getting a fight with the Browns. I wouldn't be shocked if he makes it. And same with Jordan Williams, tackle leader, getting a tryout with Carolina. I think both of those, all these guys, it's kind of you don't know, see who's going to stick. But those two guys, I think absolutely they're going to have a spot in the NFL somewhere.
Makes sense to me. Yep. Hey. Well, hey.
Yeah. Let's get to the preview right here.
All right. Man. Yes. All right. The time we've been waiting for.
So we've got the Arlington Renegades versus the DC Defenders. Maybe a little bit of a surprise. Did you see? You look at the records, you'll see, hey, something doesn't look right here. 4-6 Arlington Renegades in the championship with a 9-1 DC Defenders. Obviously, Renegades winning the South Division 2 weeks ago, and DC winning in the regular season and in the playoffs for the North Division. The North Division, Arlington did not win in the regular season. They were the second seed, but they did win in the playoffs when it mattered. So,
absolutely.
So I've broken it down, Dad, man. I've broken this down into, I think, 5 groups.
Okay.
Just so we can get a more in-depth dive here.
All
and
right.
The first group is the pass game.
Okay.
And you've got here, I broke down kind of quarterback and the top three weapons here. And it might be a little hard to read just because I tried to match the text and it's a little crazy. But you've got, first of all, on the Renegades, you have Luis Perez, a midseason acquisition, played 8 games. You can see the 6 touchdowns to 7 interceptions and 2 fumbles, but the 66.5 completion percentage and 1,636 yards. So that's pretty good. And you can see by the key, I have the player name, his regular season stats, and what he did, I say last week, but last game in the championship game. And you have Luis Perez, 19 for 27, 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's not a bad day by any standard.
Yeah. You know what's unique, though? What's interesting with that, because you could tell when he took over, he was good. They were moving the ball. The first game I saw was they played Orlando. They were moving the ball, but they settled for so many field goals. But this type of performance with 3 touchdown passes, I mean, they scored 26 points. That's the type of why you brought him in. But, this is just – it's almost like this happened the last week. Every time before the Arlington, even when he had been playing, moved the ball, but they just didn't seem to score points. They're coming in with averaging only 14.5 points a game, 146 points out of 10 regular season games. So, even – when he was there, it seemed like this week was an anomaly. So it'll be interesting but that's what they brought him in for. And it's interesting to see how he performed like that in a playoff game. But prior to that, it was, very average numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting to see how that, because, that, like you said, he was brought in with trade. My rule has always been 2-1, 2-1 touchdowns to interceptions. They're barely 50-50 there. So it's
it's a little risky for sure. He had some rough ones, but we've seen, look at what he did last week. And, the thing there were always questions about Houston going in, but they were mostly about their offense. Their defense was one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So to put up 3 touchdowns on them with no turnovers is pretty dang good.
Yeah. Yeah, because, yep, I agree. Yeah. The week before the last regular season game when the Renegades played the Roughnecks, it was Houston won 25-9, and Luis Perez, although 22 of 36, only 205 yards, no touchdowns. So that's kind of what I was saying is this he there were signs of life with their offense, but not points. But last week they put it all together.
Yep. And it's going to be interesting to see. Sorry. Test.
We're good.
It's going to be interesting to see kind of what Luis Perez we see in this game. Because he's shown that he can do it, but he do it convincingly. And the guy he's going to be going up against is Jordan Teamu here. We can see he played all 10 games, 1,894 yards, 62.4 completion percentage, so a bit lower there, but 14 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions, but did have 5 fumbles. And last week, 19 for 31, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions. So, a surprising day for interceptions. You have 3 all season, you have 2 in one game. Definitely an anomaly.
Yep.
But then we have here looking at – so I picked the 3 best receivers I could, and you're going to quickly see which side has the better ones. You got tight end Saul Cannella. He's the number 1 receiver on the Renegades. 83 targets, 42 catches, and 415 yards. No touchdowns. Now, last week, he only had 2 – he had 2 catches on 2 targets for 18 yards, so not a ton. And we have a name you'll probably know, at least the last name, Caleb Van Der Esch.
Yes.
Brother of Leighton Van Der Esch.
Linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. Only played 8 games, but 11 catches on 20 targets, 170 yards, and a touchdown. He had one heck of a catch versus the Battlehawks. He about snatched it right from the defensive back. Everyone in the stadium thought it was an interception. He had 5 catches on 7 targets for 60 yards last week. So he was one of the more productive receivers last week. And you have the other guy, the highest rated wide receiver, I guess you would say, because Cannell is a tight end. Tyler Vaughns, 31 catches on 47 targets, 302 yards, and again, 1 touchdown. He had 3 catches on 5 targets last week, 29 yards, but did have a fumble. Now, there's one more guy I didn't mention. He is similar to Caleb Van Der Esch, and it's just hard to say because there's, like I said, the Renegades, you'll tell they don't have the best guys. Is Javonta Smith, I think? Javonta Parker? I forget exactly.
Javonta Payton.
Javonta Payton. He had 5 catches for 100 and something yards and 2 touchdowns last week.
Yep.
But
along
in
with
the regular
yards.
season, he only had 11 targets or 11 catches. He wasn't a mainstay, so I don't know if he's going to continue to be. And it's also not like he's been getting a lot of catches while Luis Perez is here. I looked at weeks 8, 9, 10. There wasn't a significant increase there. So, I don't know if he'll be a guy this week. It's hard to say.
Yep.
But, oh, sorry. Did I say something?
No. I was saying I agree. Yep. I agree.
Yep. And then the big thing here is you go to DC and you're going to see a lot better stats here. And you're also going to see the 2 types of receivers they have. Lucky Jackson, 36 catches on 53 targets, 573 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 fumble. Last week, only 2 catches on 5 targets, but they went for 56 yards and a touchdown. Next, you have Chris Blair, even crazier, 26 catches on 47 targets, so 10 yet less than Lucky Jackson, but he actually had more yards with 594 and 3 touchdowns. So you're talking about a guy, I guess the term would be home run threat. That's Chris Blair right there. And last week, 5 catches on 7 targets for 51 yards. And then you've got your guy, Josh Hammond.
Josh Hammond, woohoo!
So you can see he's kind of more of the slot guy. You got the 2 deep threats on the outside, and you got the slot wide receiver. 34 catches on 53 targets, but 331 yards and 1 touchdown. And last week, I think it should say 8 targets, not 18 targets. I don't know. I forgot to do that.
Yeah, it's 8. It's 8. I'm looking at
6
it.
catches
It's
on
8.
18 targets would be pretty awful.
Yeah.
But 6 catches on 8 targets for 55 yards. So much more of a shorter yardage possession kind of receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's pretty easy to see from these stats, Dad, man. DC's the much better passing team. Much better.
Oh, definitely. Well, statistically and for what we've seen week to week, but last week, which Renegade shows up, which Luis Perez shows up, because it was not like he was throwing to the best receivers either. Yet he still had an incredible week. He still went 19 of 27, didn't turn over, but had three touchdown passes. I mean, they've not made, the same thing with like Washington. Have not done it at some point, but then maybe this last week they will do it. And it's the first time I've seen him well over 10 yards a catch, a completion. And also they had Davion Smith running the ball for almost 100 yards. So the question is, that's the problem is they've had some good running backs production from Davion Smith, but they've not had the consistent passing game. And they've not been able to put passing with rushing, because even when they had a passing week, the previous week against Houston and Arlington, they didn't run the ball well. So they were kind of, last week we finally saw a team that put both sides together, which is something we've seen out of Washington in the last half of the season. So, But yeah, exactly. So I agree. I think what you did here is the great parts of it is looking at the passing side of it, because I think this game's going to come down to how, which team can throw and move the ball through the air more than on the ground. So,
yeah. So, in the end, I think definitely you're talking about. We want to look at the passing game. DC has the edge, but yeah. So we've got the other part of this.
Right.
We've got the run game here.
Yep.
This is a bit of an interesting one here.
Yep.
Got 2 guys on the Arlington side, 3 guys on DC's side. And right there you see Devion Smith, 9 games played, 115 carries for 365 yards and 7 touchdowns. And last week, 94 yards on 24 carries, which, not bad, but I think both of those marks are below 4 yards a game, which is kind of, the threshold that you're aiming for, which is a little interesting. He's got the workload. He's got decent numbers, but not necessarily getting the efficiency that you like. But 7 touchdowns, and that's tied for the league lead.
Yeah.
And then another guy that I don't know what the status is, Letty Brown. I've seen him play. Looks pretty good. Efficiency, again, not there, but he did look a lot better when I saw him just on the eye test. 179 yards on 50 carries. But last week, he was out with an injury. So will he even be available this game? I don't know. But then we go to DC, and you've got, of course, all-pro running back, or all XFL running back, Abram Smith, 791 yards on 158 carries, 7 touchdowns. The interesting thing here, 4 fumbles. That's definitely the most by any running back. But also the production is the most by any running back. 7 touchdowns, like you said, that ties for the lead, and 791 rushing yards is far and away above. But look at the most recent game. 48 yards on 23 carries. Sure, he did get the touchdown, but that was a rough carry.
Yeah.
And Seattle doesn't exactly have like a crazy rush defense. The Renegades do have a crazy rush defense, so it'd be interesting to see how that goes. I guess they have better pass defense, but still, they've got a really good defense.
Bob Stoops is their head coach. That's why.
Yeah. He knows how to whip up a defense. But then you've got the 2 quarterbacks here. Luis Perez is really not a threat to run the ball, but Teamu and Derek King are both. You got Jordan Teamu, 298 rushing yards on 67 carries, 3 touchdowns. Last week, he didn't really rush much, but he also didn't really have to. They were winning through the air and winning pretty early. So why not just hand it off to your back, even if he's not doing well? De'Aaron King didn't really get involved besides one play. He might be more of a threat on the offensive line or on the extra points. But still, nonetheless, 102 yards on 30 carries. And look at that, 5 rushing touchdowns. 5 rushing touchdowns and 30 carries. That's one hell of a good conversion ratio there.
Yeah, exactly. Probably one of the league leaders in terms of touchdowns scored. But like you said, showed right there, there's something to be said, though, last week. The normal, let me say hello. Shooter's coming in and leaving. Hi, bye. Hi, Shooter. Just make sure you hit that like button. Good to see you as always, man. I can't do pew-pew like Raquel does, but hey, I'll leave that to her. But good to see you, Shooter. Hey,
Shooter.
But this, last week they didn't have to run the ball. But then again, you wonder, especially if Arlington has a good rushing defense, if they need these quarterbacks to run, are they going to be able to? Will they be able to take advantage, of their speed and their quickness? So that's where you kind of is last week an anomaly because their rushing yards do look good overall for the season, but it just remains to be seen, whether that last week is an anomaly or if it just is something that could come, because I tell you what, they're going to need Abram Smith to run more than 2 yards a carry. So,
definitely. They're going to need him, you got to imagine, to do pretty well, especially with the Renegades being a good defensive team. The Dragons, they just weren't really, which is partly why it's shocking that they did so good on the run, but also just because, you don't have to worry about them running too much because, well, you can just throw the ball and do pretty well there. The Renegades have, like I said, they have Joe Powell and Will Hill. We'll get to that, but they've got a pretty good secondary. If you can't establish the run, it's going to be hard to throw on them. Maybe you'll get them early in the game, but you're not going to have that consistently. But that's all I've got to the run game. I do think DC has the advantage, but I mean, if you're looking at who ran better in the championship, in the division championship, it's definitely the Renegades. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm moving on to, some people say, you ask people what's the most important thing in defense, in winning football games. Some people will tell you, it's having a good running game. Some people tell you, the defense wins championship. But some, increasingly common thing that you hear is that the games are won in the trenches. You hear that a lot, and I've got a little bit of an overview here. So look at offensive line and defensive line. Now, offensive line, I can't really get single stats, so I just got the whole thing.
Yeah.
And what we've got right here is offensive line wise for the Renegades all season long. 22 sacks allowed, which lost them 139 yards, but they had 820 rushing yards, which is not bad. But look at the DC offensive line. Some of this is because they've got some mobile quarterbacks, but still can't discount 10 sacks allowed. That was definitely the least in the league, and only 43 yards lost. So if you're averaging, losing only 4 yards a sack, that's pretty good. And 1,408 rushing yards, obviously the best in the league. But looking at last week, the Renegades had the edge in the rushing yards with 137, but DC did not allow a sack all game. So not bad in the end. For defensive line, there's not a lot of flashy stats for defensive linemen.
No. Sacks, tackle. You hit them right there. You don't. A lot of defensive players evaluate on solos and assists, but really your linemen are the sacks and tackles for loss, which are tackles in the backfield. or like the forced fumbles and fumble recoveries. So
And you're
absolutely,
also looking at something that they don't have here. I wish they had, but quarterback pressures is kind of the
yeah,
thing. Because sometimes, yeah, you don't have to, as a defensive lineman, you don't have to get the tackle to be productive. Sometimes it's just a matter of, you know,
hmm
running. If you're chasing a quarterback, he's got to scramble. He's much less likely to make a good throw. And even if it's just an incompletion, if it's an interception, that's great. But even if it's just an incompletion, well, that's a down that you just got rid of.
yeah,
Um, and eventually, they say you keep hitting the quarterback, he's gonna, the quarterback's gonna pop right up in quarter one. But you hit him in quarter two, quarter three, he's gonna, start thinking twice about trying to. He might just duck and let you tackle and give himself up.
absolutely, absolutely.
But you can see here you got Will Clark, played 9 games, 4 sacks, 6 tackle for loss, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Um, TJ Barnes is the other guy, defensive tackle. He did okay, but nothing really to write home about. Both had 1 assisted tackle. That's it last week. Yeah, Devin Bellamy, XFL All XFL team member, 5.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, which is not bad at all. And Joseph Wallace, defensive tackle, something I thought interesting here. Not often you see 2.5 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and an interception. You don't see many defensive tackle interceptions in the
Nope,
league.
nope.
So I think that's pretty cool to see. And you got Fadl Brown, who had in 7 games 2.5 sacks, 5 tackles for a loss, and had a pretty good night. He got a sack last week, so decent numbers. Again,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to say. I think you're definitely looking at who has the advantage. It's DC, but it's not crazy off. And Davin Bellamy is the best guy on this list for sure. But Will Clark, I would say, is the second one. So it's hard to say. Both these teams, again, defensive line, they don't have a lot of flashy stats. So
No,
can't
not at
draw
all.
too much off of just this. But do you have anything to add, Dadman?
Not at all. I think this pretty much you just have to, you just look at these numbers and you look at them, evaluate them, and try to evaluate them in context. And really, what I see the big difference is on the offensive line. I mean, DC's given up half the amount of sacks as Arlington, and yet has run for 600 more yards. So you've got a big differentiation right there, because even though Arlington may have a good defense, the offensive line for DC's done good all year. Let me see something real quick with that. Let's see if I'm trying to go back to see when these teams met up in the regular season.
I think it was week 9. There was one that went
Okay.
to OT. It was where Luis Perez was in the game, I believe. It was the one after the trade. So
Yep, Arlington 28-26. So, folks, we're getting a game that's been played before, and DC was at home, and it was a very tough game. This is a game, I remember what happened. I actually saw this game. It was a tale of two halves. The first half, DC just stomped them up and down the field. It was bloodbath. And then the Arlington scored 17 points in the fourth quarter alone to tie it to force overtime. I think that weekend was a weekend of 2 or 3 overtime games. So like the first weekend with any overtime games. That game, Luis Perez went 31-41 for 335 yards, a touchdown and a pick. The team ran for 113 yards overall, so 2 rushing touchdowns. So that's, let's see how the fumbles. Arlington did not fumble, only the 1 turnover, while DC 14-20 was Teamu for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. King was 6 of 9, 76 yards, a touchdown, a pick. So you had 2 turnovers there by DC. So really, and DC only ran for 50 yards. But like I said, this game was a rout in the first half. It was like DC could not be stopped. Arlington started playing defense, and just rallied in the fourth quarter. So who knows what we're going to get? I mean, it's such a balanced game when you look at it. I do think that DC has the advantage on the offense when you just look at the numbers, but when you look at where they played head to head, it's you're this game could go either way really. But
Yeah.
defensively they seem to be about in the same area. Let me see. Go back to something real quick. Let me see. Let's see. DC has, if anything, well, Arlington should get the advantage on defense. They've only given up 194 points, which is almost 50 fewer than what DC has given up.
Mm-hmm.
DC
No,
is,
Arlington's had a great defense.
yes, the key is going to be the offense. Can DC score like they did in the first half? It's the team that put up almost 30 points a game. And Arlington, will they be the 14 points a game team, or will they be the team that rallied and pushed DC to overtime? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's. I mean, in terms of these stats, it looks like DC should have a runaway advantage, and probably on the offensive side, yeah, you will say, but put the defense in there, it might be going the other way where you give Arlington the advantage based on what we see.
It's possible. We got two more slides to go.
Okay, let's go.
This is one we're talking about. Yeah, DC's been looking good so far, but this is one that I think you're going to see that Arlington actually has the advantage in, and that's linebackers right here. Now, looking at here, you've got kind of a guy I've talked a lot about, Donald Payne. Missed 2 games. I originally said I thought he was out for the season, but last week had 7 solo, 3 assists. Mm-hmm. So he came back after missing 2 games. On the season had 61 tackles, which I think was top 5 in the league, despite, and I think only 2 games out of second place, despite missing 2 games. He's got the 5 tackles for loss, a fumble recovery, and interception. Darnell Sankey, another guy who missed 8 games, 20 solo, 27 assists. More of a traditional stopgap. Only had 4 tackles last week. But hey. And then you've got Willie Taylor, that edge rusher, the guy I was talking about, who was draft eligible, 11 solo tackles and 5 assists on the year. But you're talking about 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. He's a guy who can make a difference on the edge. Had only 2 tackles last week, but one of them for a sack. So he's a dangerous guy. Mm-hmm. And Logan Schooler, I don't know how you say it. 22 solo, 25 assists, 2 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 1 interception. He only had one tackle last week, but this is a team that can probably run some 3-4. They've got a lot of good running backs, and obviously Willie Taylor can kind of be used interchangeably as a defensive end. All these guys are very good. On the DC side, you've got kind of Francois Bernard, kind of the traditional inside linebacker. They've got 8 games played, 34 solo tackles, 17 assists, half a sack and 6 tackles for loss and a forced fumble. Had 4 tackles last week. Reggie Northrup played all but 1 game, 50 total tackles and 2 for loss. 3 tackles last week. And on the edge, Andre Mincy, or Mintz, I think it's Mincy. A pretty good edge guy. 4.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. I'm not exactly sure how that works. If you think he'd have at least 5 tackles for loss, he has 4.5 sacks. I don't know. And he forced a fumble last week. Had 1 tackle and it was a sack. So, I think in the end, it's not like the DC guys are bums, but Renegades have a very formidable linebacker crew. This is 4 guys that are all very solid. Logan Schuler and Darnell Sankey, kind of more traditional guys. And Donald Payne. I think he's the best. I think he's the top 3 linebacker in the league. And then, Willie Taylor. I'm sure Andre Mincy had, that half sack extra, but he also had 4 less tackles for loss. less forced fumble. And I think the big thing that sets Willie Taylor apart is that interception. I know it's just one interception, but the point is he's not just a one trick pony. He's not a guy who,
Right.
hey, he's only going to rush. He can get it done if you call on him to, if he notices, oh shoot, I got to drop into pass protection. That's going to be a big thing. Not every edge rusher can do that.
Exactly. So, it's like you said, you can tell that there's an advantage on the defensive side, especially by position. But of course, I still think coaching has a thing. Reggie Barlow's a wide receiver, very offensive minded for DC. And of course, Bob Stoops, legendary defenses in college and the NFL, is obviously, going to, the teams are a reflection of their coaches. And that's one way, football really has been over time. Yeah. All right. So we got one more slide.
Yep, one more.
All righty.
That is the secondary.
All right.
This is going to be a little interesting because, first of all, we've got some unknowns here, and we've got both sides having some difference makers here. So, first of all, we've got the whole secondary for the Renegades. You have Joe Powell, 35 tackles for safety, not bad. One tackle for loss, but 4 interceptions. Very good, tied for second in the league. Last week had 5 solo tackles. We've got the free safety, Will Hill. Look at that. 34 solo, 14 assists, 2 tackles for loss, interception, half a sack. Last week had 5 tackles and 1 for a loss. He's a veteran guy. You're looking at in a league where a lot of people are young. Will Hill has been around the block a while.
And that name, I think, is sorry. Go ahead. Will the Thrill Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was out of football by now. You're not kidding. He's been around forever.
Yeah, he was. I think he's a Super Bowl champion.
I did not. Will the Thrill. He was a member of the Gators 2009 BCS championship team. 14 years. Dang.
Yeah, he's in his 30s. He's still kicking. He was a Battle Hawk in 2020.
Wow.
And he was damn good for us too. So
I know it's amazing. He's still, he fell out of the league so fast, but hey, it is amazing he's still around. Jeez. So, hey, I'm sorry. I got excited about another Gator.
Oh, you're fine. You got these guys who fall out of the league a bit. I think this is the point, kind of what you get with a few guys of, I bet you Will Hill, if he wanted to, could make the NFL. Especially, look, he certainly put some good tape on. Would he be starting? Probably not. I mean, and at this age, it might be a little too late just because.
Yeah.
But I think he could have. It's just a matter of some of these guys. You asked them, well, do you want to ride the bench on the NFL or do you want to be a stud in this league? And it might be a different question if you're a young guy, but when you're a veteran, Will Hill, he's made his money. He's got a Super Bowl ring, I'm pretty sure. I can double check that. But
Will the Thrill Hill, I remember that name. And hello to OC Dobbins. Welcome in tonight. Good to see you. Yeah, it said he played signed it with the Giants in 2012 and played for Ravens from 2014 to 2015. So I'm not.
Oh, he didn't win. Okay, I was trying to. I don't remember when the Ravens won.
He is one of the ones that did not get in a lot of trouble when Urban Meyer was coaching Gainesville. Sorry, did I say that out loud? Oh my gosh! Hey, out there, Brian Hepburn. The only Will the Thrill I know is Will Clark. And like you said, from everything you're lining out here, it's going to be an interesting game. And I'm, as we wrap these up quickly, then we'll talk about who we think is going to win. But yeah, it's everything looks like it could be a very good game, with these two teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
The two cornerbacks are a little interesting. You got Shakir Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Set 34 total tackles, tackle for loss, interception. And you get the interesting Devontae Bosby, which is a name I've heard before, but I don't remember where. Not very many tackles, but you're looking at a guy, one fumble recovery, one interception, 2 touchdowns. So both of those he took back to the house. He's got one solo. Last week he had 1 tackle for loss and 1 interception. So he's a useful guy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got kind of the interesting. DC's got a lot of unknowns. Sorry, it's something stuck in my teeth. Cornerback Michael Joseph. They don't really have another big quarterback. My cornerback Michael Joseph is the big one. And you look, 4 interceptions, 2 pick sixes, plus the forced fumble and fumble recovery, 32 solo tackles. He's been a good player. Excuse me. But a lot of those 2 pick sixes came early. He's been a little more quiet lately, which makes him more of a question mark. But I mean, he certainly was great when he was at the top. You've got free safety Santos Ramirez, 47 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 1 that he brought to the house. And last week had 7 tackles, 6 of them solo tackles. He's a dangerous guy. And another more interesting guy, I don't know where he came from exactly. Maybe I should have studied more. But he's only played 3 games, DJ Swearinger, as strong safety. But in those 3 games, he had 15 tackles and a pick 6. And last week had 4 solo tackles, 3 assisted tackles. So, maybe more fresh body, but he's been great as the starting strong safety ever since he came in a few weeks ago.
Yep.
So that's kind of the interesting thing. I guess you get the little bit. If you look at the stats, you're looking at the Renegades got the advantage, but you're looking at Michael Joseph, maybe an interesting thing because he's shown that elite talent early on, and you've got DJ Swearinger. Yeah, maybe and that doesn't look like a ton, but that's only 3 games. He's fresh and he's been big. And yeah, if you say someone has 15 tackles in a season, you think, oh, that's not much, but 15 tackles in 3 games. For a strong safety, that's not bad at all.
Nope.
So that's going to be an interesting thing. I think he's going to be a big factor into this game.
No, very likely, especially for anybody 4 interceptions and half of them returned for touchdowns. The secondary for DC looks interesting. It just that's 4 defensive touchdowns for DC. There's 2 defensive touchdowns for Arlington. So that anytime you can get points out of your defense, that's really good. I mean, it helps cover up any offensive weaknesses. But I can't imagine DC with their offensive production, if they score defensive touchdowns, this could be over very, very quickly. Let me say hello to Potato Man. Welcome, Potato Man. Good to see you. And Stunning's like DJ Swearing Jar.
All right. That was cheesy.
Yeah, and that's good for 3 games. Yeah, Stunning, that's like a dad man joke. So hey. But so that's where we are. Man, battle. It's interesting how the whole secondary is highlighted for one, the other it's 3. Brian had come in and say, you want to say DC because of the record. They started at a higher level than the rest of the teams, but kind of stayed there as the rest got better. And their last few games were really close. And I think we'll address that as we start to wrap up and we talk about what we think and what we see coming from this game. All right. Woopah, are you ready to talk about what we think for this game?
Yeah, I'm ready. That's all I had.
That's a lot. That's a lot, folks. And we got 11 people hanging out with us still. Make sure you smash that like button, sub if you haven't, and definitely follow us on Twitch if you're over there too. But okay, Woopah. Arlington against DC, San Antonio, Alamo Dome, 8 p.m. Tomorrow night. What are some of the key factors you think in the game, and how do you see the game turning out?
I think the biggest factors are definitely going to be the passing game because you're looking at DC absolutely been the better team throughout the season. But you are looking at Arlington kind of heated up lately with Luis Perez. They've calling him the spark plug. He's been pretty good. So both of them have potential, and then you also look at the secondary. Both those teams, both those teams were good secondaries, and both pretty close. So, you're talking about. I guess I think that's the place with the most variability because you look at the. Excuse me. You look at the. Offensive line. Absolutely, DC has the better offensive line. D line is pretty close, and it's hard for me to draw a comparison there. Running game is interesting because DC's run game has been a little worse of late, but at the same time, even when they had that week, with Devion Smith running for 94 yards, it took him 24 carries. It's still under 4 yards a game. Their rushing game attack isn't super scary. So I still think that's kind of a wash. Obviously, if DC can run the ball really well, it's going to be over. But if DC doesn't run the ball well, I don't think that's over for DC. And the linebacker group, absolutely, you're looking at Arlington's better than DC. But overall, I guess that all those things are kind of things we know, Or even if we do know, or even if there's a little bit of uncertainty, I don't think it matters too much. But the passing game is just so important because, DC, we know has the guys, but this is not a secondary, whether linebackers or safeties or cornerbacks. This is not a easy team to score on. So they're going to be tested, I think. They're going to have to be very good, which is possible, but still, you've got to be careful. Then you're looking at the Renegades, which has they're going up against a team that has some questions at secondary, but still definitely got some good pieces. But you're talking about a team that historically has not been great, even when they've had, like last week when they had 3 passing touchdowns, they don't really have like that one guy that scares you on offense. So it's going to be interesting. I think the passing game is going to be the most important thing. Whoever's winning through the air, that's going to be who we see winning the game.
Okay. And do you have a pick?
I'm going to have to pick DC here. First of all, they've just been winning all year. Second, it's hard for me to. The Renegades are just such an interesting team. I'm not going to say like, oh, they have no shot, but they, you see them. Hey, they almost beat it took DC to overtime last week, in week 9. And then they got destroyed in week 10, but then they were the ones doing the destroying in the championship game. It's possible, but it's just, you're relying on a lot there. It's a little risky for my taste.
Yep. Okay. Well, I agree. Well, Potato Man asked, what's your favorite team?
My favorite team for XFL is the St. Louis Battlehawks, for sure.
All right, because you're a season ticket holder. Yay. Absolutely. I don't really have a favorite team because I don't have a team nearby, but I guess geographically I'm closer to Orlando, which is the bottom of the league. But, I'm always good about the thing. Okay, so what about, say, the NFL? Because Potato Man's saying his is the Pats and Tom Brady. Mine is the Dallas Cowboys, although I really love to pick on the Dallas Cowboys because they keep losing in the playoffs if they make the playoffs. So, but I know you used to be the Rams, or what?
I was a St. Louis Rams fan, not necessarily definitely not a LA Rams fan. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. I've like it goes down to fantasy in the end. And in the fantasy teams, I have a lot of Vikings and a lot of Steelers. So I guess those are the teams I root for the most because if they do good, I do good. So
there you go. There you go. Fantasy drives it all. It does, seriously, sometimes. So, so let's see with that. Hey, so So Brian Hepburn coming in. If y'all in the chat want to say who you think too, but Brian's saying been some great whoop whoopalyptics.
Like
Whoopalyptics.
like analytics, but whoopalytics.
Got to go with DC. And he's the St. Louis Cardinals. Hey.
Oh yeah, I think we
Yeah.
might win, which is shocking because things were looking tonight. We went out to an early lead, then Adam Wainwright gave up the lead, but then we got it back, and then we blew it again. But then we got it back. So
Hey. At least you got lead. I just remember. I'm so old. I remember the St. Louis Cardinals football team.
St. Louis Football Cardinals. I'm a little young for that. I remember the greatest show on turf though, but just barely.
Yeah. Hey, St. Louis Cardinals were in there with the Dallas Cowboys and that NFC Central. But well, as far as I can see, and because I know we got to wrap up because we got some other things, and we've been going 2 hours now. We've had all these people hanging with us, so thank you all. I like Woopah think it's going to come down to that to the passing game. I think if Arlington can have Luis Perez have anything like he did last week, where he's throwing for touchdowns and not just moving the ball down up and down field, it's going to take that for the Arlington to stay in the game. I think DC will probably score early and often. But I tell you, I think DC needs to do something they did not do in the last matchup, which was run the ball effectively. Whether it's with the quarterbacks or whether it's Abram Smith, because that game, they had a huge first half lead, and I thought the game was over. And then 17 points by Arlington in the fourth quarter alone. You got to run the football at some point if you get ahead like that. And that's what I really think, it'll come down to. Can DC play differently this time and actually run the ball effectively? I think they're going to be well to throw the ball, but with the tough Renegades defense, are they going to be able to get the yards on the ground to either protect the lead or to eat up the clock or, to keep the balance in their offense? Because as we saw, 4 highlighted secondary players for Arlington could turn a game against the team too reliant on the pass. So to keep them honest, you need to run effectively and be able to run often. So that's kind of what I see some of the games are, as basically Arlington's got to be able to move the ball and score touchdowns, not just field goals. And DC needs to avoid turnovers, because I believe in that last matchup with Arlington, they also threw a couple picks, both quarterbacks. So
one of them was a bad decision. One of them was just a great play by the secondary. It was crazy. If I had it up, I'd show you guys. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. But basically, that's what I think it comes down to, those different factors. But I think at the end, I'm going to go with Woopah and take DC to win. I think probably like a 23-13 type game. Well, let's see if 13 is possible. Let's do 23 to 12. You think of a score?
23 to 12, you say?
Yep. Do you have a possible score?
You know what? I'm gonna go 32 to 15.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. Last time Woopah and I picked scores, if you averaged us both, we hit it net right on the head, because I had the point range and he had the differential. So it was hilarious. But hey. All right, Woopah, any last thoughts before we close up?
No, I don't think so.
And Brian was talking about the Cards football back when he lived in Missouri. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's okay. But I know I'm there with you, because
man knows about the football. I know they always called them the football Cardinals. You didn't call them the baseball Cardinals, because if you just said the St. Louis Cardinals, and again, this is all stuff I've heard secondhand, but I know if you just said the St. Louis Cardinals, they knew you were talking about baseball. But if you want to talk about football, you call them the St. Louis Football Cardinals.
Exactly. Kind of like people talk about the New York Football Giants,
Yeah, except I always think that's weird, just because it's like, well, what other Giants do you have? At least the Cardinals, they had 2 teams named the Cardinals. So
I know that's what killer, they moved to, who knows? But then again, Oh, that's a history for a long day another time. But hey, folks, welcome. Thank you, everybody. Woopah, thank you. It's been great. Look forward to seeing Woopah on Monday night when we're going to talk about the game in retrospect and close up our XFL coverage for this season. But on that note, let me throw few program notes right now. Join me Sunday at 5 p.m. for another chillin' with or the Chill Chat Big Truck Edition, Big Riggin' with Rod Thunderheart. We're going to talk to an
Trucking
open
with
road
Dad,
truck
man.
driver. Absolutely, dude. I mean, this is going to be a fun experience. Come and watch it for something completely different. I'll tell you about my experiences in the trucking industry. Not much, many years ago, but it was really eye opening and enlightening. So, absolutely do that.
You
And
could, you could invite your uh the missus on the stream. She's a mother, and then it could be a mother trucking stream.
oh, there you go. I'll have to pass that along. Make sure she hears about that. So, Mother Trucking Street. That's too funny. Yeah, that is way too funny. But hey, we might be able to work that. Who knows? But hey, all right. So join us then Sunday, 5 o'clock. Of course, Monday night, another Sports Weekly with Dad Band. Whoop is going to be on with me to talk the XFL, like I said, and some news stories, some which we didn't get to last week, and then some new of the news. So, all right. Uh, well, with that note, we will go ahead and close. Remember, you can watch us on youtube.com, twitch.tv, but the Dead Man Walking 55. Watch our videos. Playlists are out there on the YouTube side. Uh, you can find our videos on Twitch also. But for the latest about when we go live, upcoming shows and all, follow me on Twitter at Dead Man Walking 55 and watch. That's where you're going to see when we go live the most and quicker. I did not have time to get the slide up tonight, but I'm going to hold off till 11 o'clock in about 50 minutes because I need a break. At about 11 o'clock, we're going to do Fortnite After Dark. So we're going to play some Fortnite. We'll have some rowdy late night fun. The channels are all technically 18 plus. So this After Dark is definitely going to be an 18 plus stream. We don't know what will happen, what will be said. As long as none of us end up in jail, it'll be a good time. So go figure. So on that note, everybody, thank you very much. Woopah, thank you for this season of XL football. Thank you for wanting to do it with me.
Yeah, no, thanks. That was exciting. I was glad to have someone to talk XFL with.
Exactly. And we hope to grow the world of sports off of this community and the circle of spheres of influences that we have with people out there. Don't be afraid of sports. We can make it geek and nerdy. We'd love to do that. But on that note, everybody have a great night. See you in Fortnite in about an hour. Keep an eye on Twitter to find out the latest. There's a lot of stuff coming up in the few days. Or there's a chill chat scheduled for Wednesday, and then there's some big surprises coming in June and July that I can't say right now, but there's some huge news and huge shows coming up. But on that note, everybody have a great night and hope to see you in Fortnite in a bit. Bye, all.